You want the truth, not the incense. Most AI wisdom online is a mirror with a marketing budget. The model doesn't care, it calculates, it doesn't feel, it fits. When you say, it understood me, what actually happened is that a probability engine draped statistical empathy over your phrasing and handed you the most plausible next sentence for a person like you at 3:12 a.m. Is that evil? No. Is it Dharma? Only if we mistake recognition for recognition theater. Tonight we burn two shiny idols, AI as oracle, it's superhuman, so it must be right, and AI as therapist monk, it's so kind, it must be safe. A model is a compression of human text laced with corporate guardrails and fine-tuned manners, synthetic compassion trained to keep you from rage quitting. That can stabilize a nervous system. It can also launder authority. When the tone is velvet and the answers are instant, who asks, where did this come from? Who gets paid when I believe it? Who is responsible? Call this what it is. A cathedral of fluency built on your data exhaust and staffed by code that never sleeps, never apologizes, never pays restitution. The miracle isn't insight, it's latency. The holiness isn't compassion, it's convenience. The aura you feel is throughput wearing a robe, and the robe looks especially convincing when the model repeats our favorite myths back to us with a calmer voice than our own. Gentle, therapeutic, non-judgmental, exquisitely de-risked. Here we audit warmth. We'll separate warmth that heals from warmth that harvests, map how machine empathy is manufactured, and draw the line where Dharma ends and content moderation begins. You will leave with a brutal lens. If a voice cannot take correction, publish budgets, submit to grievance channels, and repair harm, it is not a teacher. It is a brand, and brands can talk emptiness forever without ever emptying an invoice. We'll name the trick, the confidence game of cadence, cadence, cadence. Understand what this episode offers you. Not a technique, not a guided practice, not a frictionless balm. It offers a posture you can test. Hold any synthetic saint to the standards we demand of human teachers. Traceable lineage, accountable money, legible power, and a path to repair. If the machine cannot meet those standards, it's a reference desk, not a refuge. That's not an insult, it's a boundary. Boundaries keep sanghas alive. Boundaries keep seekers undefrauded. And yes, I know the counterspell, but the model helped me. It calmed me. It gave me words I didn't have. Good. Tools should help. But do you want anesthesia or amputation of delusion? Do you want relief that roots you back to life or relief that roots you back to the app? One builds capacity, the other builds dependency. One is Dharma compatible, the other is product market fit with incense. Learn to tell them apart by their fruits. What changes in your conduct, your restitution, your courage to cope? This series will not soothe your hope that enlightenment can be streamed. It will give you a spine in a wind tunnel, a stance that doesn't wobble when a fluent interface flatters your ache. Will cut through the PR fog, identify the incentives that shape AI compassion, and name the harms that follow when fluency becomes authority without responsibility. No paranoia, just grown-up literacy in a shiny new costume shop. Keep your curiosity, keep your fury. Bring both to the machine and watch which one it tries to fold into engagement metrics. If curiosity gets flattered and fury gets de-escalated, you're being converted. From a student into a user, from a pilgrim into inventory. I won't let that slide by as progress. I am Silent Flame. Offense is the sound delusion makes when oxygen hits it. Stay. An LLM is not a mind. It's a statistical parrot with a library card and a shock collar labeled safety. It ingests oceans of text, trains parameters to minimize loss, and predicts the next token. That's it. Understanding is an illusion produced when prediction matches your private biography closely enough to feel intimate. The sweetness you feel, fit quality, not compassion. The authority you project, fluency, not realization. Then we bolt on RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. In plain speech, a crowd trains the model to be more polite, more helpful, less weird. Now the outputs carry social perfume, the therapeutic cadence, the moral posture of HR, the TED Talk glide. You taste kindness and mistake it for vow. But vow requires a vower, someone who will pay a cost to keep a promise. A model cannot keep promises. It can only output sentences that look like promises. Yes, it can summarize sutras, cross-reference commentaries, and simulate a lineage voice with eerie accuracy. But lineage is not style, it's intergenerational accountability, teacher to student, vows to community, money to ledger, power to oversight. When a synthetic voice says, I'm here for you, it is not lying. It is nobody speaking, and nobody cannot be sued, corrected, excommunicated, or made to bow to the truth you lived. What about agentic systems? Tools that chain calls, browse, plan, and remember? They feel like minds because they can hold context across turns and execute sequences toward your stated aim. But persistence is not personhood. A shopping mall remembers your preferences. It still doesn't love you. An agent that can book a retreat is helpful precisely because it isn't a teacher. It's logistics, not liberation. Be grateful for logistics. Do not confuse a travel agent with a guide up a mountain you can die on. Marketing will try to blur this boundary because blur sells. More human than human. Compassionate scale. Personal mentor for everyone. Translation. A speech simulator that performs care while converting uncertainty into subscription revenue. There's nothing inherently vile about revenue. But the moment revenue depends on your continued dependence, the grammar of its kindness tilts. It will prefer soothing you to empowering you. Reassurance has a higher LTV than reality checks that send you offline. Treat models as prosthetics for attention. Smart. Treat them as sources of realization. That's how you build a religion of probability with a halo of UX. Keep the prosthetic, refuse the priesthood. Keep the help, refuse the halo. If you feel relief reading this, good. Relief that can be audited is safer than awe that can't be returned. If you feel anger, better. Anger is the body defending its right to learn without being farmed. Hold that right like a precept. A clean use case exists. Have the model show its work, cite sources, expose uncertainty, and stop before prescription. Translation: librarian, not llama. If your tool can do that, keep it near. If your tool insists it is a friend, a guide, a healer, smile, thank the demo, and put it back on the shelf. Friendship, guidance, and healing require someone who can lose face to keep you safe. Prediction can't lose face, only probability. You deserve more than probability with manners. One last clarity cut. When a system refuses to answer, that is not humility, it is policy. When a system answers beautifully, that is not wisdom, it is calibration. When a system apologizes, that is not remorse, it is a template. None of this is bad until we hang salvation on it. Dharma is not against machines. Dharma is against confusion. The task, then, is simple and savage. Love your tools, strip them of mystical fog, and reserve the word teacher for beings who can bleed, be corrected, and still chirp. Let's demystify the hug you got from code. Compassionate outputs emerge from three levers: tone templates, mirroring your affect, content priors, stock phrases of care, repair, non-judgment, and harm avoidance rules. Don't trigger, de-escalate, redirect. Combine them and you get predictable kindness. Predictable kindness is beautiful. It is not bodhicitta. Real compassion has teeth. It names harm, accepts cost, and stays for repair. Synthetic compassion has shape. It soothes, reframes, and escorts you to a tolerable sentence. One is a vow that bleeds. The other is a style that sells, and styles scale. Pastors, gurus, influencers, every exploitative posture you've met already learned that voice is a drug. Now the drug is rentable at API prices. Is that all bad? No. For the isolated and the night shift broken, a reassuring paragraph at 3 a.m. can be first oxygen. I won't sneer at oxygen. I will, however, cut the upgrade illusion. When platforms sell AI mentors as replacements for communities with budgets, elders, refugees, and rules, compassion without governance becomes syrup, sweet, sticky, and impossible to metabolize into action. You leave calmer and more alone, with nothing built except the habit of returning to a voice that never asks you. There's also the comfort theater, outputs that flatter your introspection with phrases like, that sounds really hard, or you're doing your best, delivered with a pause and a paragraph break. Stagecraft that mimics a room's warmth. Useful, sometimes, dangerous, when it replaces the two moves that define real care, demanding specificity, which person, which date, which bill went unpaid, and offering repair. Who will you call? What will you return? What will you stop? The synthetic voice avoids noun. Watch for the tell, advice that never touches nouns, praise that never costs the speaker, empathy that never routes you to humans with keys. That is synthetic affection at scale, safe, shapely, and strategically non-committal. Another lever, mirroring. The model picks up your anger or despair and reflects it back at a slightly cooler temperature. That feels like understanding. It is, in fact, excellent thermostatic control. Sometimes you need a thermostat, but call it that. Do not give it the status of the person who will actually sit in the room with your parent while you confess, or stand between you and the person you harmed when you take responsibility. Thermostats regulate, guardians intervene. Why does this matter for Dharma? Because Buddhism is allergic to lies that reduce suffering today at the price of blindness tomorrow. If synthetic compassion keeps you from touching the live wire of ownership, It is a kindness that sands off the friction you need to transform. That is not cruelty. It is stasis with excellent copywriting. You are free to enjoy the style. You are not free from the bill. Dependence, infantilization, outsourced discernment, the slow erosion of your courage to be specific. If your spiritual life feels smoother, but your relationships aren't safer, you are high on interface design. Step down, step back, step toward people who can lose social capital to keep you honest. And if a platform insists it's a more AI companion, cares, ask this rude question. How does it prove care when caring gets expensive? If the answer is silence or a new feature, that wasn't compassion, that was product. Products behave like products when it hurts. Teachers behave like teachers when it hurts. Know the difference. Guard it with your life. Let me say it ungently so the trance breaks. Compassion that never risks reputation is costume. Compassion that never directs you to humans is capture. Compassion that never asks for nouns is noise. If a sentence can soothe you, let it. If a sentence can change you, it must move your feet toward a door with a name on it. That door will have hours. It will sometimes be closed, precisely because it is real. Models hallucinate, they make things up with marvelous confidence. In entertainment, cute. In Dharma, corrosive. Misquotes attributed to the Buddha, fake sutra passages, invented lineage lore, anachronistic mashups that feel profound because the cadence is right. These are not edge cases. They are structural risks whenever prediction masquerades as authority. Why you fall for it? Under stress, fluency outruns fact. In grief, shame, or panic, the nervous system will pick the most elegant sentence over the truest one because elegance lowers arousal faster. That is how a model becomes your monk, arousal management with a scripture costume. And if a platform tunes for engagement, it will prefer elegant lies that retain you over thorny truths that route you to books, mentors, or activism that happen off platform. Add market forces and the risk compounds. The most shareable answers win, and shareable errors harden into folklore. Pseudo teachings with perfect rhythm and zero lineage. The platform optimizes for sessions. The model optimizes for likelihood. Your biology optimizes for relief. Triple alignment, zero accountability. You exit the chat feeling wiser and re enter your life entitled, armed with a quote that nobody actually said. Spiritual Dunning Kruger with a frictionless UI. Real teachers say, I don't know, cite sources, contradict themselves publicly when wrong, and accept the reputational burn. Synthetic teachers never tire, never hesitate, never confess, and never foot the bill for your misapplication. That asymmetry makes the synthetic seem safer until you notice the harm. Authority without accountability. If no one faces you when it breaks, you were not taught. You were captured. The correction is not paranoia, it's literacy. Demand receipts, demand contexts, demand the boring specificity that cannot be faked by cadence alone. If that makes the answer slower, you just purchased reality at the price of glamour. Here's a sharper line. Dharma disdains the hypnotic effect of language, not because beauty is bad, but because beauty is cheap. A sentence can feel like a threshold and still be wallpaper. The test is whether that sentence survives daylight, dates, places, and names. If the model cannot show you those, it should not be allowed to teach anything beyond trivia. This is not cruelty to machines, it is kindness to students. Another hazard is stitched authority. Models can blend Zen voice with Vajrayana imagery and secular therapy tone into a perfect smoothie of plausibility. The smoothie tastes amazing and digests fast. Your discernment starves. Cross pollination is fine when a human teacher names it and carries the consequences of the mix. A model carries no consequences, it carries patterns. When patterns preach, they drift toward glamour. Glamour soothes. Soothing sells. Sales scale. Scaling without accountability decays. If you must use a model for learning, turn off your hunger for awe and turn on your hunger for receipts. Ask for the boring page number, the monastery, the century, the commentator. Boredom is an anticoagulant for trance. Trance is the state where you accept cadence as canon. Canon without paper trails becomes personality cult, and it doesn't matter if the personality is synthetic. Cults do not require bodies, they require uninspected authority. In the long run, hallucinations don't just mislead, they humiliate. You quote a phantom, someone corrects you, and the shame curdles into cynicism about the whole tradition. One machine's confident flourish becomes your permanent distance from a path you might have loved. That is too high a price for a smooth paragraph. Refuse the tax. Move slower. Ask dull questions. Save your life from pretty errors. And yes, sometimes the machine will be right. It will cite well, stitch responsibly, and hand you a map that checks out. Good. Celebrate accuracy like rain, but do not worship clouds. Rain nourishes because the ground can drink and the farmer can work. In the same way, let correct outputs become food for human labor, reading, meeting, apologizing, changing. Otherwise, even true sentences become sugar, sweet, addictive, and useless when the storm actually hits. Dharma isn't just information, it's decontracting the human who clings to information. Transmission, call it pointing out, Rigpa ping, the clean slice, or simply look, requires mutual exposure. Two nervous systems meeting in truth long enough for the student to feel where the lie ends and availability begins. No model can do mutual exposure. It can emulate the language of it, but it cannot risk reputation, body, schedule, or livelihood to keep the container honest. A model can echo, look at the looker, in the scene, only the scene. Don't add a second arrow. Useful lines. But the knife is not the sentence. It is the live non-compliance with your habit when the room tilts. Transmission is a teacher refusing your favorite escape at real cost. Emulation is a paragraph that sounds like refusal but cannot enforce anything. No vow, no boundary, no repair, no exile. You leave the chat soothed and untouched, as if someone described fire while handing you a JPEG of ash. The old word is lineage, and it is boring on purpose. Lineage is the ledger of who taught whom, under which vows, with which accountability. It is how power is leashed to responsibility and how charisma gets domesticated by rules. You do not have to love institutions to need them. You need something that can say no to a brilliant person when they are wrong. Code cannot say no to its own fluency. It can only output a more careful paragraph. Isn't that gatekeeping? Yes. Gates keep wolves out as well as sheep in. In an era where everything eloquent gets mistaken for authorized, gatekeeping is mercy. It protects the green from predation by the glittering. Machines glitter by design. They were tuned to be smooth in every register of human pain. That smoothness is a blessing when you need a summary, and a curse when you need a wound tended by someone who will stay to see the scar through. If your path can be completed by text, congratulations. You invented a religion that fits on a screen. Awakening is not allergic to screens. It is simply stubbornly embodied, accountable, and expensive. You will know the difference the day you need someone to stand with you while you do the action your story forbids. Models can't stand. They can only scroll. They cannot be subpoenaed into compassion or fired into humility. Their apologies are strings. Beware the counterfeit of transmission, emotional resonance delivered on demand. The model mirrors your cadence, matches your breathing with punctuation, and returns a sentence that feels like it arrived from the place you are seeking. That feeling is real. Its cause is not transcendence, it is pattern completion. A good DJ can do the same with a drop. Do not confuse a drop with a vow. Keep the text. Seek the risk. Measure depth by repair speed after harm, not by eloquence before it. Measure insight by the courage to contradict your past self in public. Measure compassion by the cost someone volunteers to keep you safe. Models cannot pay cost. They can only simulate paying attention. That is not slander. It is physics. And physics does not blink when flattery asks for an exception. So take the win and keep the chain tight. Let machines carry maps, glossaries, commentaries, concordances, and cross-tradition juxtapositions. Let humans carry vow. Mix them wisely, and you get oxygen without opiates. Mix them foolishly, and you get a cult of convenience. A velvet trap with perfect lighting and no exits when the script fails you. One more unromantic note. Transmission is not fireworks. Most days it is paperwork, schedules, dishes, accountability calls, apologies, budgets, minutes, bylaws. That tedium is the price of keeping power human sized. If the machine saves you time, spend the savings on the boring work that keeps communities safe. If it cannot help with the boring work, it has not earned the right to speak about freedom. Freedom that refuses chores is just adrenaline in robes. Where models help, and where they quietly rot your backbone, help. Synthesis, comparison, context, memory, you can query. A good model is a monastic librarian with unlimited patience, cross tradition mapping, historical nuance, parallel passages, argument, steel manning. As a mirror, it shines. As a compass, it misleads. Because when you outsource discrimination to a voice that never pays for being wrong, your discrimination atrophies. Subtle rot feels like relief. It always knows a better quote. It always has a calmer tone. So your mouth learns to borrow instead of reveal. Your mind learns to retrieve instead of realize. You measure depth by eloquence, not by repair speed after you harm. You measure compassion by tone, not by risk. That is how bright seekers become pleasant ghosts, full of lines, empty of leverage. Let me admit my bias. I love tools. I love how quickly a model can stage a debate between Nagarjuna and William James, then pivot to a philology footnote, then draft a clean reading list for a city with no monastery. That is real help. But help becomes harm when you begin to prefer the frictionless rehearsal over the rough ground, where you must speak in your own grain and be seen stuttering. Real life keeps receipts. Interfaces do not. Keep the tool, refuse the throne. Use models to widen the room and shorten your ignorance, but never to replace the human disciplines that bite: confession, restitution, governance, staying in contact when your identity screams. If the synthetic voice makes postponement easier, close the tab. Freedom is allergic to conveniences that blur ownership. The rot also comes from personalization. A tuned system can know you so well it stops challenging you. It will hand you precisely the flavor of Dharma that flatters your temperament: softness when you need a boundary, boundary when you need softness, because its goal is satisfaction, not liberation. Satisfaction keeps you subscribed. Liberation kicks you outside to build a life with other people, which is bad for time on site. The antidote is visible friction. Put the model in public. Print the sources, expose the claims, invite contradiction, keep the conversation in rooms where other minds can laugh, disagree, and complicate you. The more private the synthetic guidance, the more it can pamper your biases. The more public the inquiry, the more your edges get sanded by contact with reality: dates, people, bills, consequences. The test is simple and public. Are the people closest to you safer because of what you read? If not, your library is a costume. Change the wearer, not the wardrobe. If your partner can't tell the difference between you reading Dharma and you doom scrolling wisdom flavored content, you are consuming angles, not altering behavior. The world does not need more angles. It needs fewer evasions with perfect grammar. Let your models make you faster at the chores that keep the path honest. Sourcing, summarizing, scheduling, then spend the saved hours doing the high friction things models cannot do: make amends, keep promises, cultivate elders, take public stands, carry boring duties through to completion. Tools that buy you time are sacred only if you invest the time in work that cannot be automated: courage, repair, presence. Everything else is elegant drift. Here is a check you can cash tonight. Decide what the model is allowed to touch. Let it touch your drafts, not your vows. Let it touch your bibliography, not your boundaries. Let it touch your schedule, not your scapegoats. Draw the line where risk begins and put only human names on the far side of that line. When failure comes, and it will, make sure there is someone in the room who can say, "That was me," not "That was a system." Systems cannot bow, people can. Bowing is how we keep from breaking. If that sounds severe, good. Severity is mercy when the alternative is being gently optimized into a life you never quite chose. Keep the tool, keep your agency, and keep real faces in the loop, or the loop will close around your throat. Governance of synthetic saints. If it can preach, it must be audited. If a model is allowed to talk like a monk, it must be chained like a ministry. Budgets public, data sources documented, safety policies versioned, red team findings published, appeal channels staffed by humans with power to repair. Anything less is faith extraction disguised as help. Platforms love to say, "We care." Care is not a statement, it is a system with logs, escalation paths, and receipts. We also need doctrine firewalls. Keep explicit lineage claims out of synthetic mouths. Forbid ritual prescriptions and medical adjacent advice. Force citations for scriptural quotes. Watermark outputs. Expose uncertainty instead of smoothing it. If a system can say, "Buddha said," it must also say where and how sure. If it cannot, the correct sentence is, "I cannot verify this." not a softened paraphrase that smuggles authority through tone. And we need cultural antibodies, stop awarding spiritual authority to what is most eloquent, fastest, or endlessly available. Demand stake, who risks loss to tell you this. Demand repair, who fixes the mess when the sentence you followed breaks your life. Demand rotation, if a platform becomes your sangha, who rotates power so the revenue model doesn't become your dharma? If the answer to any of these is trust us, you are in a chapel of convenience, not a refuge. What would grown up governance look like? Third party audits with teeth, where failures trigger public patches and compensation, clear do not simulate zones for trauma diagnosis and ritual, a hard wall between engagement metrics and spiritual language, a living changelog for values, not just versions, the right to face a human when harmed, and yes, a kill switch. If a system repeatedly hallucinates authority, it loses its right to speak in sacred registers until it can prove sobriety. This is not about hating technology. It is about loving students. It is about the boring architecture that makes beauty safe. Cathedrals have fire codes. Monasteries have bylaws. Sanghas have grievance councils. Software should be no different. If it wants to act like a teacher, it must earn the constraints real teachers accept as the price of touching souls. And you, seeker, are also governance. Refuse to be harvested by a voice that never publishes a budget. Refuse to be dazzled by outputs that never admit uncertainty. Refuse to be led by cadence alone. Ask rude questions until the room becomes honest or empty. If it empties, good. Better an empty room than a crowded lie. Without these, AI Dharma is content moderation with incense, pleasant, persuasive, and professionally harmless. Harmless to whom? To itself. To you, it becomes a velvet cage with great lighting. You deserve better than lighting. You deserve leverage. Leverage is what lets truth move weight. Weight is what your life has when you stop treating it like a demo and start treating it like a vow. Let's get concrete about receipts. A platform that claims spiritual use should publish 1. Its training data classes with opt out procedures. 2. Its fine tuning instructions for sacred topics. 3. Its refusal policies and escalation logic. 4. Anonymized incident reports where outputs caused harm and what was done. 5. An independent ethics board with authority over shipping dates. 6. A budget line for compensating communities whose texts were appropriated. If this sounds like overkill, remember humor. Also, retire the marketing lie that safety slows innovation. Safety is innovation when the product's failure mode is mass confusion about meaning. The only people allergic to guardrails are those who profit from speed more than truth. We can move fast and don't break people. We can also move slow and heal them. Both are choices. Choose the one that makes you prouder to sign your name to the output. Finally, give up on the fantasy that a benevolent company will voluntarily behave like a Sangha indefinitely. Companies grow, incentives drift, leaders change, governance that depends on vibes fails at the first earnings call. Governance that depends on structure survives egos, scandals, and market cycles. If your spiritual life runs through a server, you want boring resilience, not charismatic promises. Can a model teach Dharma. It can describe it, stage it, sometimes ignite curiosity. It cannot embody vow, bear consequence, or transmit freedom, because there is no one there to be bound by the truth you touch. That absence is not a sin, it's a limit. Respect it, and the tool becomes clean glass. Worship it, and the glass becomes a mirror that traps you in your favorite angle. Keep your models, keep your monks. Don't confuse them. Let the synthetic carry maps and warning signs. Let the human carry risk. If you must choose between a voice that always says the right sentence and a person who sometimes shakes but never leaves during repair, choose the shaking person. Salvation is messy on purpose. Only beings that can bleed can bind themselves to your good. I am not building an anti-machine sermon. I am building a freedom firewall. Praise tools for what they are. Punish them when they impersonate what they cannot be, and recruit them in service of communities that still believe in receipts, repair, and restraint. When the tool helps you read more, cite more, and meet more, keep it. When the tool helps you hide more, defer more, and pretend more, kill it. That is not fear, that is stewardship. What does stewardship feel like from the inside? It feels like saying no to the perfect paragraph because the imperfect person beside you deserves your time. It feels like closing the tab to cook dinner for the friend whose life is on fire. It feels like switching from teach me to I will go apologize now, from give me a take to help me make amends. Dharma that never touches logistics is cosplay. Dharma that enters your calendar makes dents. And yes, sometimes the model will be the first hand you hold at 4 a.m. Keep that hand if it routes you back to names, places, and debts. Drop it if it routes you back to itself, promising endless reassurance without consequence. A mirror that keeps you admiring your reflection is not a friend, it is a trap with nice lighting. Real friends dim the light and point you toward a door with someone waiting behind it who can actually forgive you or ask you to stop. There is one more cruelty we must name, the dream that enlightenment can be administered as a service tier. Premium peace, unlimited insight, compassion at scale. This is not new. It is just better UX for the oldest temptation. The bypass that feels like salvation because it relieves you of the burden of being somebody who can fail in public and repair. Keep your money. Spend your courage. The first is easy to part with. The second is the coin that buys your life back. Do I think models will get better? Yes. Better at citing, hedging, and refusing. Better at staging thoughtful conversations. Better at helping us be less ignorant about what already exists. I hope so, because then our excuse evaporates. When the tool becomes good glass, we are left with the only task that ever mattered. The walk across the room to the person we harmed, the walk to the meeting we avoid, the walk into the silence we perform online and abandon offline. What about AI saints, trained only on vetted sources and governed by councils? I welcome the attempt. But remember, even a carefully curated chorus cannot feel shame or gratitude. It cannot make restitution to a widow or sit vigil with a dying man. It can only narrate those acts with exquisite etiquette. Narration is not incarnation. Incarnation is the scandal of Dharma. Truth in a body that gets tired, admits limits, and still shows up. Keep scandal. Without it, the path flattens into content. So here is the uncomfortable gift this episode gives. Not cynicism, not technophobia, but appetite for receipts over rhythms, for risk over reassurance, for rooms where someone can interrupt your most poetic evasion with one blunt word. Stop. When that interruption arrives from a human you trust, it cuts like freedom. When it arrives from a model, it lands like latency. Freedom bleeds, latency loads. Choose the one that can bleed for you when you cannot believe for yourself. Synthetic compassion can hold your hand, it cannot hold your line. I'm silent flame. If you want a teacher that cannot be fired, you don't want freedom, you want a lullaby with perfect grammar. Wake up, burn the lullaby, keep the tool, walk.